in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Another lecture on the introduction to the understanding of the Quran is presented to you. The sequence is such that we are presenting the introduction to the Quran in the form of small questions, and then their answers, so that in the light of questions and their answers, we can gain an understanding of the Quran. After all the introductory lectures on the Quran, God willing, we will present the mission of understanding the Quran through small lectures in which people of all ages will be able to easily understand the Quran. So, let's take today's lecture question. The question of the lecture is, what is the background of the Makki Surahs? First of all, let me clarify that in terms of the revelation of the Quran, the division of surahs is in two ways. Number 1, Makki Surahs, and number 2, Madani Surahs. Makki Surahs are those that were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, during the 13-year period of his mission in Mecca. These are called Makki Surahs, whereas, after the 13-year period of prophethood, when the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, migrated from Mecca to Medina by the command of Allah, the surahs revealed in Medina are known as Madani Surahs. So, let's look at the background of the Makki Surahs. In previous lectures, I had described the Prophet Muhammad's, peace be upon him, mission in 3 different phases, the first of which lasted for about 4 to 5 years. However, by the 3rd year of this period, the mission had already entered its 2nd phase. Both of these phases are known as the Makki period. Regarding the background of the Makki Surahs during this Makki period, I would like to mention that in the early days of the Makki period, the messages of the Quranic revelations were brief and concise. Their language was extremely eloquent and impactful, tailored to the temperament of the audience, namely the Quraysh. It was as if these messages were so captivating that they were meant to influence the hearts of the audience. The messages of the Quranic revelations had a strong local flavor. Whenever there was a need for arguments, evidence, and examples, they were drawn from the same context, using the same references and examples, because the audience, namely the Quraysh, had been chosen by Allah to be the foundation of his religion, as a result of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, invitation. This nation was to become the Muslim Ummah in various phases. Since the Prophet's, peace be upon him, invitation initially rose against the ignorant system of this nation, the Quraysh were anxious to save their ignorant system. Anxiety and restlessness were increasing among the Quraysh, and they were compelled to devise a definitive plan to crush the ever-growing influence of the Islamic movement. They were prepared to do whatever it took to preserve the system of ignorance. They considered it necessary to do so to preserve it. It was as if this was the era of intense conflict that brought truth and falsehood face to face, in such a manner that falsehood was determined to obliterate the Islamic movement by force. Truth and falsehood had come face to face. In this situation, we will present the style of the Quran's revelation in 2 parts before you. Let's look at the first part of the background of the Makki Surahs. This relates to the believers. The first part concerning the background of the Makki Surahs in the revelation of the Quran was about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the members of the Islamic movement. As a result of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, invitation, truth and falsehood had come face to face. Therefore, during this struggle, Allah Almighty revealed passionate sermons to his Prophet, as per the occasion and necessity, which were filled with enthusiasm and spirit. These sermons had the flow of a river filled with the force of a flood. They contained the impact of a fierce fire, and on one hand, these qualities were providing the believers with the means to strengthen their faith, while on the other hand, these sermons were also informing the believers of their initial duties. Within them, a sense of community was awakened. Through these sermons, the members of the Islamic movement were educated about piety and moral excellence. They were introduced to the principles of a pure character, taught the methods of propagating the true religion, and encouraged with promises of success and glad tidings of paradise. They were inspired to strive in the path of Allah with patience, perseverance, and high spirits. Through these sermons, such a tremendous zeal and enthusiasm for sacrifice were instilled in the members of the Islamic movement, that they were ready to risk their lives, to endure every hardship, and face the greatest storms of opposition. This was the first part of the background of the Makki Surahs. Now let's look at the second part of the background of the Makki Surahs, which relates to the people of Kaf and the polytheists. The second part of the background of the Makki Surahs concerns the opponents of the Islamic mission, namely the Quraysh, and others who turn away from the right path, and those who are in a slumber of heedlessness. Through the revelations of the Quran, they were warned about the fate of those nations, whose history the people of Makkah themselves were aware of. They were given lessons from the ruins of those destroyed settlements, which they passed by day and night. The evidences of monotheism and the hereafter were presented to them in the form of these clear signs, which were displayed before their eyes, day and night in the heavens and the earth, which they themselves observed and felt at all times in their lives. The errors of polytheism, denial of the hereafter, and their ancestral imitation were explained with such clear arguments that they were compelling to the heart and penetrated the mind. Each of their doubts was dispelled, and every objection was answered in a reasonable manner. The confusions were cleared, in which not only they themselves were entangled, but they were also trying to entangle others. The encirclement of ignorance was tightened from all sides, to such an extent that there was no place left for it to remain in the world of reason and wisdom. Alongside this, they were instilled with the fear of God's wrath, the horrors of the day of judgment, and the torment of hell. They were criticized for their bad morals, wrong way of life, and ignorant customs, and they were reproached for their enmity towards the truth. The great principles of morality, culture, and civilization were presented to them, upon which the construction of Allah's favored and righteous civilizations has always been based. This was the second part of the background of the Makki Surahs. This was the Makki period of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, mission, and during this period, the struggle between truth and falsehood went through various stages, and at each stage, the core of the mission continued to flourish. The struggle and resistance became increasingly intense. The Islamic movement continued to encounter groups with different beliefs and practices, and accordingly, the style of the Quran's revelation also changed over time, and as needed, until the Meccan period of the mission completed its 13-year duration, and the caravan of the Islamic movement migrated towards Medina. This is the discussion related to today's lecture, in which we have described the nature of the Makki Surahs. Alhamdulillah, today's lecture is complete. In the next lecture, we will strive to discuss more about the introduction to the Quran. From this platform, I invite you to come towards understanding the Quran. This is the word of Allah Almighty, revealed according to human nature, and this book is very easy. To understand the Quran, we have started an excellent series on Quran comprehension, which will include short lectures. So, let's understand the Quran through these short lectures. My mission is to spread the knowledge of the Holy Quran to every corner of the world, but I cannot do this alone. I need your help. If this message touches your heart, and if you believe in spreading the light of the Quran to the world, then please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. Together, we can reach those who are searching for the right and true path, who wish to improve their afterlife. See you in the next lecture. Until then, take great care of yourself. May Allah protect you, peace be upon you, and the mercy of Allah.